Hey everyone, in this video we are going to learn about JavaScript data types. So far we have learned how to create variables, but variables can store different kinds of values which include numbers, text or Boolean values. So what kind of data can we actually store? That's where data types come in. A data type tells JavaScript what kind of value a variable can store. JavaScript provides us 8 data types and they are divided into two categories. Number one is primitive and number two is non-primitive data type. So let's start with primitive data types. In primitive data types, first we have numbers. The number data type is used to store whole values and decimal values. For example, let's have an variable age 22 and let's have another variable price like 99.08. So let's try to console log the type of each variable. We can use type of operator, the name of variable, and let's see the output. So we get the output as number for both the whole number and the decimal numbers. Unlike some other languages, JavaScript doesn't have separate types like int or float. Everything is simply a number. So now let's move on to the next data type, which is string. A string is used to store text. We can create a string using double quotes, single quotes, and backticks. For example, let's have a variable first name, Richard. Similarly, we can also use single quote, last name, and also we can use backticks. For example, if we have variable city. Now let's try to console log the variables and we should get the output string. Next we have Boolean data type. So Boolean data type can have two values, which is true or false. Boolean variables are used for conditions and decision making. For example, if we have a variable isAdmin, which is to store the data for the user if it's admin or not. Let's try to console log the type of this variable and we should get output as Boolean. Yes. So next we have undefined. If you declare a variable that doesn't assign it a value, JavaScript automatically gives it the value undefined. For example, let's have an variable value and let's not initialize that, and if we try to console log it, we should get undefined. Yes, and if we try to check the type of this variable, we'll also get undefined. That's true. Now we have next data type, which is null. Null data type represents an intentional absence of a value. Let's assign a user null and let's try to console log the user and we get the value null. Now you might expect the type of null will return null, but surprisingly it returns object. So it is actually a well-known bug in JavaScript that has existed since the beginning. It couldn't be fixed because it would break millions of websites. Let's verify the type of this variable and we should get object. And next we have BigInt. So BigInt data type is used to represent the large integers in JavaScript. For example, if we have a variable, let's say big, which is equal to a large number, then we just add n at the end and it becomes BigInt data type. So we'll try to console log the type of this variable and we should get BigInt. And last data type we have is symbol. A symbol is a primitive data type that creates a unique value. It is useful when you need a value that is generated to be different from every other value. For example, if we have one variable id1 and we want to make it unique, so we can use symbol with the descriptor as id. Sorry, this should be const. And similarly, if we make the another variable id2 with symbol with same descriptor id, and if we try to compare these two variables, it should return false because symbol creates a unique value. So if we compare those, we should get false. And we can also log the type of these variable, which should be symbol, and we got our output as symbol. So these 7 were the primitive data types. Now let's move on with non-primitive data types. So far we looked at primitive data types, the simple single value types. Now let's move on to non-primitive data types. The difference is one line. A primitive holds one value while a non-primitive holds a collection of value or something more complex. Let's say we want to store everything about a person, their name, their age together. A single primitive cannot do that. So we need to group them into an object. Let's try to make an object which is person, which represents two properties including name and age. So an object is a collection of related data stored in single value written as key value pair. In our example, variable person hold two pieces of information that belongs together. Everything in JavaScript that is non-primitive is an object. That's the whole definition of non-primitives. If it's not one of the 7 primitives, it's an object underneath, which include things like array, functions, and etc. Let's assume we have array nums. Let's have one function greet. Even though these three looks completely different, but underneath they all are objects. So you can remember, if a data type that is not among the 7 primitives, then it is an object. And last different, you should always remember, primitive values are copied by value, which means when you are copying them, JavaScript creates completely new copy. And objects are copied by reference, which means multiple variables can point to same object in memory. And that's it. And that's a wrap on data types. Thank you for watching.